When I was younger, and even now as an adult, I was always fond of telling people that stories saved my life, that books helped me find myself, helped me find joy, helped me find a reason to keep on living. And that has always been true. But I decided to start a discussion type series, based on specific instances and specific situations where books have saved my life. So to kick things off, I will be talking about my sexual assault and how Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's Americanah saved my life. Hello everybody, Noria back again. So I would just like to point out right here that I will be talking about sexual assault. So if you're triggered by that, please, you could leave now. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it, and I do understand not being able to handle this, because for a very long time that was just the mention of it was very triggering for me. I could not do it. So yeah, there will be talks about assault and rape in this video. So if it's triggering for you, please think of yourself. You can leave, you can close the tab if you want to. Whatever you need, just do what you need for you. So this is going to be a very weird discussion. I hope it's not too long, because I don't think this is something I want to talk about for a long, extensive period of time. So I would start by talking about Americanah, because of all of Chimamanda's books, a lot of people actively ate this book. Like, they actively ate it. Popular Hibiscus is the preferred, the most favored, the most loved. And although I did enjoy it, even though I've not read it in a while, I need to reread it again to refresh my memory. Although I did enjoy it when I read it the first time, and by it I'm referring to Popular Hibiscus, of course. Americanah would always be my favorite, because this was the one that saved me. This was the one that pulled me from the abyss. So what is this book about? This book is technically a love story between Ifemelu and Obinze, two teenagers who found each other and fell in love, and then grew into young adults and separated and reunited 13 years later as full-grown adults, each one of them their own persons, each one of them living their own lives, but still in love, even though one of them was married at that point. It's a love story between a man and a woman. It's a love story between a woman and herself. It's a love story between a woman and her hair. So it's just several love stories interwoven into one. That is what Americanah is. But what does Americanah mean to me? It's living proof that you can survive. It's living proof that my pain is valid. It's living proof that I'm worthy, not useless. So to give a bit of a background, and this is why I start talking about what happened. I was assaulted within 2 months of each other. The first one happened in May 2012, and the second one happened in July 2012. The first time, and These were from, like, by two separate individuals. The first one, I went to a party. I was doing this thing here in Nigeria. After you're done with your university degree, you have to spend a year away from home. We call it the National Youth Service Corps, whereby you give back to the country as a whole, to the community. It's meant to foster community, is meant to encourage integration, because ideally you should be posted to a state or an area where you've never been. So you need to learn their cultures, learn their tradition, learn their language if possible, and learn how to live and exist outside of what you've always considered home. And home for me up to that point was Ibadan. I was born there, I grew up there, I went to uni there. That was the only home I'd ever known. And I was posted to work in Lagos, which is where I currently stay. Yes, I stayed after service. So I was posted to work in Lagos. I was posted to a secondary school where I taught literature. And for a year, I taught literature for a year. And this secondary school was in the middle of nowhere. So we didn't really have that much of a social life. And I remember that Friday, my boyfriend had gone to see his aunt. It wasn't around. And there was a party and I was bored, and another one of the couples was like, "Oh, Nora, let's go for a party. It's happening on the island." One of my friends invited me. It's a GT Bank party. So I said, no problem. That, oh, okay, cool. The friend that invited them worked at GT Bank, so he was the one that got us the invite. So we went there to the island. We danced. I drank. I got tipsy. I flirted. I danced again. I insulted some people because someone pissed me off. He bumped into me with his drink. And there was a point during the dance where I kissed our hosts. And by host, I mean the friend of the other youth service corps member that, we were, that invited us to the party. I kissed him. Or rather, I kissed me, and I think I kissed him back. I can't remember. Everything was pretty easy because, like I repeat, I was quite tipsy. But the party lasted till about I think, say 4 in the morning. No, 3:30. About 3:30 in the morning. So we couldn't go back to where we were staying, so we had to crash on the island. And our host was like, "Oh, we could crash at this place," so we did. So we were all there, and I remember I was on the bed. I was attempting to fall asleep because when I'm drunk, I easily fall asleep, but sometimes I don't. That was one of those difficult nights. So I was trying to fall asleep, and then I felt this pressure on me. And our host, this dude, was on me, and I couldn't budge him. I struggled, I pushed, and he was there immovable. He was also drunk, not like that excuses him, but he was also drunk, and it was really heavy, and he would not budge. And I remember I tried bucking him off me. I definitely remember my voice being raised. I don't know why, but somewhere at the back of my head, my voice was tuned too low. So I didn't scream, even though I was struggling. And the people I went to the party with were there in that room. And even no matter how heavy a sleeper you are, you would have heard that. But they didn't come to my rescue or anything. So he pinned me down, right? And then he jerked off on me, which was disgusting. And after I struggled and I tried for like almost 15 minutes and I couldn't budge him, I just lay there. The next morning, he was very apologetic. It was like he was drunk and all of that. I'm like, fuck you. Like, seriously. fuck you, I hope you choke. And I went home. Um, I didn't really tell anybody because I felt so ashamed. And then my boyfriend broke up with me because there were rumors, and the assholes who did not come to my rescue said, "Oh, I had consensual sex with their friend, the rapist." So yeah, that did not go well. 2 months later, wait, why am I even saying 2 months? No, it wasn't 2 months because that happened on a weekend. By the next weekend, my boyfriend found out he broke up with me. That same night, I was on my way home, and then my mom called and said, "Oh, a family friend was coming to Lagos and wanted to see me. I should go visit him, etc." And I was not in the right mental space to make any decisions. You know that point where you're broken and you're an empty shell, and you're just going through life in a haze, and every little thing everybody says you just accept it because you're that vulnerable. Although my mom didn't know because I didn't tell my mother. And so she said I should go visit the family friend, so I did. This is someone who is was like my dad's was like my dad's age mate, so he's like pretty old, like an uncle. um so this happened. So I went to visit him. Now this was happening 2 weeks after the first. So I said 2 months. Yeah, I said 2 months before. 2 weeks after the first incident, and I went to visit him. And I remember that night we're having a conversation, and then he basically said he wanted to have sex with me, but that I didn't have a choice because it was kind of like for my own good or some stupid shit like that. My mind tried to like blow up a lot of the things that happened. And I remember that night just laying there 2 weeks after the first time, and 2 weeks after the other one. And um unlike what happened 2 weeks ago, I didn't even, at that point in time, I didn't even struggle. I was just there. Like my body was physically there, but every part of me was screaming silently for me to push, but I was numb. And my mind, my psyche, I locked in on myself, and I pushed it. I pushed that inner crying, wailing part of me deep down inside. And I just laid there until it was done. And then I went back to where I was posted, because it's kind of like slightly on the outskirts of town. I went back to where I was posted, and I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my friends. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell my best friend. She didn't know. Okay, I didn't know about it until I just told her last year, since 2012. So yeah, it took me 6 years because I felt so stupid and weak, and I couldn't believe what happened. I couldn't believe that you always tell yourself that you're the strong type, very vocal. And usually I am. I am very opinionated. I would let my mind, and I will fight and scratch and scream and bite. and I would shatter bones because that is how I was raised, to never walk away from a fight and to ensure that the other person is left in a worse state than I am. So at that point, I felt like I had failed myself. And somewhere in my subconscious, I blamed myself. I convinced myself that it was my fault. And I convinced myself that it couldn't have been rape because there's a narrative we get as a society about rape. Rape is not rape unless you're either unconscious and so you could not fight or struggle, or you are fighting and struggling. Like, those are the two instances. Nobody ever talks about the one where you do not respond, your body just shuts down as a way to preserve and protect you, and you did not push away even though everything in you was screaming that you do not want this. Nobody says anything about that. And so after that period, I lost it. I was depressed, but I did not know I was depressed. So I found comfort in sex. Goddamn, I had a lot of sex that period. But it was not, everything was a blur, because these were people I was not otherwise attracted to, people I otherwise would not have wanted to have sex with, but I wanted to feel not useless. I wanted to not feel numb. So I was having sex with everybody. Yeah. And I was spiraling, and I didn't know I was spiraling. My best friend wasn't in the city. She wasn't even in the country. So every time she called, I lied. I was fine. Nobody knew anything because, I repeat, I was in a city alone on my own. So I could get away with it because nobody knew. And it was so insane and so crazy. And that was my life for 7 months after that. And then I got an email from a friend that I had not spoken to in a while, who said he was sending me an e-copy of Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, that he felt I was going to enjoy it, and that Ifemelu reminded him of me, which is one of the biggest compliments anybody has ever paid me, because Ifemelu is one of my favorite female characters. So I was like, okay. So I checked my mail. The book was there. I didn't read it immediately. It took me another 3 months to finally get to reading it, and I was enjoying the story. And then it got to a very crucial part in the book. Ifemelu had just relocated to America to get a degree, and she didn't have any money. She had no money for food, she had no money for tuition, she had zilch. And so she checked the classifieds to see if she could get work. And there was this ad with a pay that she found unbelievably good, that needed a caregiver. So she answered the ad, and when she got there, it was basically an escort ad. The guy wanted to have sex with her, and was paying good money for it. And she took the money, not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice. And she lay there, and when it was done, she took the money he gave her and went home, and was depressed for months after. But she didn't know. She had no idea until a friend checked up on her and mentioned it. And that was the point. I distinctly remember. It was April 2013 when I broke down in tears, and I finally admitted to myself, you were raped twice in the space of 2 weeks. And neither of those situations or circumstances were your fault. Even though you didn't scream, even though you didn't fight back, it does not make your trauma any less, nor does it make it any less valid, because it was not in any way consensual. And that is the definition of rape. And as a female who came to terms with that in the book, I came to terms with that in my life. And that was how she saved me. Because I am 100% sure that if I had not read this book at the time when I did, I wouldn't be here today making this video. I don't think I would have survived. Not with my trajectory. Not with all the emotions I was carrying. Guilt that was not even mine to carry. I wouldn't have survived it. So, yeah. I guess that's why I made this video. I guess that's why I'm putting it on the internet. So, just in case you've been in a similar situation and you were wondering, because these are not things you necessarily see out loud, you hold the guilt in, you ask yourself if it was really rape, if you didn't push, if you didn't fight back, if you started it wanting it and then changed your mind midway. It is. You have every right to withdraw consent at any point. And anybody who is half decent, man, woman, non-binary folk, anybody who is half decent should be able to accept that and stop. Because it is your body and your choice. And sex is only beautiful when it's consensual. And when it's not, it's not. So, I'm saying to you what I wish someone had told me earlier, but what I'm happy I discovered in the pages of a book later. It's not your fault. Whether it's something that happened recently or it happened 20, 30 years ago, whether you've come to terms with it or you're still suppressing it or dealing with it, it's not your fault. It wasn't my fault then. It wasn't my fault when at 6, a cousin decided that he was going to stick his hands in me because, he wanted to experiment. And he was older. He was 15. I was 6. I was still assault. I was sexual assault. But doesn't matter how long ago it was. It's never been your fault. It will never be your fault. And I just hope you remember, and I'm saying this to myself as well, that you matter. You, your existence, your joy, your strength, your happiness, everything about you, you matter. You make the world brighter by being in it. You make the world a better place by being in it. You contribute so much to this world by your very existence. Your mind, your spirit, your kindness, your volatility, even your rage. It matters because you matter and you're integral and needed and seen and loved. You're so loved. Never forget that.